Welcome to Beyond the Billboard, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of out-of-home advertising. I'm Greg Wise, and I've spent years helping brands navigate the world of marketing and media planning.
And I'm Charlie Riley. I've spent 2 decades leading marketing teams who've pondered the same question about out-of-home. If you're a growth-focused marketer looking for data-driven ways to stand out, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Billboard. I am Charlie Riley, head of marketing at OneScreen. I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Wise, the co-founder and chief commercial officer of OneScreen, who powers this podcast webinar, all these different channels that we use. We're here to talk about a couple different channels with you, with a good friend of ours, a good friend of OneScreen's, and a good friend of a lot of marketers, because I know a lot of people, you've probably seen him on LinkedIn. You see everything he talks about, from field marketing to experiential marketing. He's an author. He's got some great ideas, and we were chatting before about some great takeaways for how you can utilize out-of-home and field marketing. Welcome, Nick Bennett. We appreciate you joining us, and this should be a good conversation.
Yeah, appreciate you having it. I mean, 2 of my favorite people. Like, I could never say no to you two.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. We're excited to have you.
You're too kind.
Yeah, not many people ever group me into like their favorite people. So that was cool. Thank you for that on a Monday.
Even my kids don't. So yeah, you just made my week. So thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. You obviously have a great career. Maybe if you just want to give like the too long didn't read version of your background, but obviously you've done some great marketing work, and I think this will be a really good conversation for a lot of the marketers that are listening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been pretty much in the tech world for the last 15 years. I've worked for, early stage companies, mostly Series A to Series D, have gone through multiple acquisitions, IPO, companies running out of runway. So I feel like I've seen a lot. Came up as a field marketer and event marketer for about 12 years. It's what I know best. It's when I started creating content on LinkedIn, I was known as, hey, you are the field marketing guy. And it's interesting, not to stereotype or anything, but when you think of field marketing and events, like a lot of women do these types of roles, and it's cool for a guy to be able to do it. And whoever does it, I feel like it's great because I get to meet so many different people. And when they're like, oh yeah, hey, you actually know what you're talking about, that's pretty cool. You're not just an event planner. No, I know how to make it part of a whole go-to-market motion. And I think that's the important piece. And so for years, I tried to champion Field Marketing 2.0, which was really how do you use field marketing and events as a revenue accelerator to everything that you're doing, and not just, again, seen as an event planner. So then I branched off, did ABM, customer marketing, and I've done a lot of different things over the years. Like you said, wrote a book around influencer marketing. I've done the community stuff. So yeah, it's been a journey.
I've learned a lot from you, just following you on LinkedIn, but then also getting to know you and your work. You span a lot. And I think when someone thinks about maybe demand gen, they're thinking paid ads and such. But as we've seen, events they've made a comeback, even though they never really went away. I think everyone's more excited to get out in person more than ever. But can you maybe just give the quick definition of what you think field marketing is? Because I think a lot of marketers and maybe others in an organization probably have a different opinion about that or view on that. But how do you frame that up? And we can jump into exactly how you've utilized that and driven revenue for brands.
Yeah. So I think when I think of field marketing, sales is your internal customer. So you're working with sales. And I think this was before COVID, but field marketers were aligned from a territory perspective to how sales was. So there was an East Coast field marketer, Central, West, APAC, EMEA, Canada. Obviously, COVID changed a lot of things, and there was no need for people to go out and be on planes every day. And so a lot of meetings for sales was happening on Zoom. So it's how do you align field marketing to a specific sales organization? So it was all right, some people are aligned to the enterprise segment or mid-market or different verticals or whatever it is. And so a field marketer shouldn't be just an event planner. Yeah, I'm a big sports person. Charlie, hey, Pats beat the Bills. I don't know if it's still a bad thing for you, but when I think of field marketing, you are the quarterback. You are the Tom Brady of the team, and you're the one that's calling the plays, and you're working with everyone, your running backs, your wide receivers, your tight ends, your offensive line, to be able to get a touchdown. Now, those are all the cross-functional departments: finance, sales, account managers, CS, BDR, SDR, whatever it is. You have to basically work with them to put the plan together. Now, events is one piece of it, but you have account-based marketing, you have the digital component, you have the paid component, brand, messaging. There's so many pieces that that field marketing actually plays a bigger piece in versus just the events piece, again, for their specific vertical segment, whatever it is.
Love that, especially probably if you find ways to cheat, like, maybe some quarterbacks do. But I think they're
Charlie's not bitter. Charlie is not bitter about the Patriots.
not at all. As a Buffalonian, not at all. But I think you highlight a lot of things that maybe get lumped into a different function, or like the glue that ties all that together. I think it's extremely important when you think about sales enablement, when you think about, you referenced ABM, and we deal with a lot of customers that try to figure out how out of home can fit into ABM, but you covered 5 or 10 different things that I think are maybe thought about differently. So how have you, and maybe trade shows is the anchor there, because people think big, large trade shows, especially as marketers, we love to go to these things and we love to build these things. How have you seen brand evolve at those? I guess selfishly for us, as we understand the out of home world, you've seen a lot of executions. You've done executions with out of home at trade shows, or just maybe even smaller events. Can you talk about some of your examples and work there, and how you bridge that field marketing and like to get awareness before an event, during an event, after event, and how you utilize out of home within that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is you have to treat out of home like an event channel. So like, and I think that's such an underrated piece that people don't think. They think like, all right, great, you're out of home, I'm just going to slap it on at the end of it. Like, I have another $2,500. I just need to slap something on to get a little bit extra awareness out. And trust me, I've been guilty of that as well. But if you treat it like an event channel, you're planning it at least 3 to 6 months out. It's not a last minute add-on. It makes such a big difference, because then you're aligning every activation to your pipeline goal. Create new demand, accelerate existing deals, or expand customers. Now, the way that I've always thought about it is, how do you apply the who, why, how, what framework to this? So like when I think of out of home and field activations, when I think of the who, it's the target accounts and the audience personas. Now, most of my life has been in the MarTech world. So like, that's what I know better than anyone. I've marketed to marketers for many, many years. And yeah, like they can see through the bullshit. Like you have to get extra creative when you're working with them. But again, that's my who. The why is, what's the business and emotional reason behind the campaign? That's something that I feel like I talk to a lot of marketers and they don't know the why. They know the who. I'll get into the how in a second, in the what, but they skip the why. And I think the why is actually one of the most important things behind everything. So that's the why. When I think of the how, it's the channels, the creatives, the partners. Like I'm a very big fan of like, how do we co-market this together, especially when you're in a scrappy economy, like getting that budget or that extra awareness with someone else that's a friendly or tech partner, API partner, whatever it is, goes a little further. Now, the what is the experience itself. So maybe it's an LED truck, maybe it's a billboard, maybe it's some type of performance or whatever it is. Like there's so many other pop-ups that you can do around that what. The last thing that I would say around this is you always define the one outcome that you want to learn about your audience. Like for example, maybe it's interest level or buying timeline or the problem urgency. Pick one outcome that you want to learn from that audience that you picked in your who, and then that will help fill in beyond the why, like the how and the what, that will help support everything from that.
Wait, the why is fascinating. It's a fascinating concept. For folks listening, actually for myself too, because I actually don't think I've ever thought about it like that. I always, the why is a critical question. Give me some examples. So like you're a B2B company selling to, I don't know, HR folks, right? Yeah. And obviously, but tell me what examples people might be thinking about or using for the why, and how that applies to an event or out of home, creative, or whatever.
Yeah, think about like what's the one thing that is going to make their life easier? Like that, what's that emotional connection? Because if someone can emotionally connect to the why of like, listen, like your company is going to help save me 20 hours a week, or help get me to in front of 500 more people, or whatever it is, like you're making my job easier, which again, it's the business that I talked to today, they're so strapped because everyone, the bandwidth, it's just not there. It's hard. Like everyone's struggling, like everyone's stressed out. So like, if you can help make my job easier, then yeah, I would love to learn why. Now, if you can connect that creative around whatever it is that you're doing. Again, maybe it's a billboard. And we were talking right before this of, funny thing that I saw while I was at Dreamforce. And like, if you can connect that creative to make it real, to make it personal, and even like raw, like I hate polished stuff. Like I do typos all the time. And like, I would much rather something raw, something relatable in the creative that makes me feel emotionally connected to it. Now, I may or may not remember the company name, but that's fine, because if it's something, usually what happens is when I see something like that, I take a picture of it, and then I'll go back and I'll look at it because like I thought that was like a cool concept, or I thought that tagline or motto or whatever it is was something that was really impactful. And then I'll obviously be able to save the name of the whatever company it was and be able to do that. But like, it's figuring out like a deeper reason, like why someone would want to be part of whatever it is that you're doing. And usually it's like saving time. It's like, hey, we don't have the bandwidth to do this, or hey, you're going to save me money by consolidating my 20 other tools that I have, or whatever it is. It's connecting on like that business and emotional aspect of it that I think frames a lot of the other stuff.
I like how that's not necessarily just selling product attributes and features, which is something that probably is, we're the number one whatever in software or whatever. Well, who isn't also claiming that? But like, if you're someone reading that and you're like, the job's to be done, or like the actual tangible takeaway of like how this helps your life, like you said, if it's saving you specifically 20 hours doing this recruitment, or like you said with HR, whatever that might be, it's like that relates to me. And I like that. And I think your example there that you just gave is how we see some marketers measure what we do with out of home, because they may not have the exposure, especially at a conference or a trade show or something like that. It's a tight window. So the exposure, you may not have enough impressions for it to completely resonate right away. But like you said, someone takes a picture, or they go back and Google it, or they search an LLM later on. And that's where we see an uplift in traffic. And I think that's one of those things where, back to your point about like, why are you doing this? Making sure you understand how to measure that later on. That's one of the ways that we've seen customers be able to say like, yeah, we weren't trying to just drive people to a QR code, but we saw search traffic go up around the region, or from marketers that we know were attending that, and we could see that traffic on our website. Like, that's a really good way to tie all that together.
Yeah. And I was going to say one other piece to that, which I agree with everything that you just said, is like, so often when people are doing these like out of home activations, I see it a lot. Just even if you walk around a trade show, you see it on everyone's booth. It's like the social proof of like, hey, go check out G2. Like, we're a top company. Like, I can tell you, and I've bought lots of technology over my career. Like, G2 might hate me for this, but like, I do not go check G2. I rarely check G2 for any reviews. I go to the people I know, the people I trust, which brings me to my second point of like, co-creating out of home around these field activations with like influencers and creators. And I don't think people are doing this right now. I think some are doing it at the booth level and some things around that. But I would love to see, at least in B2B tech, like, and you guys can tell me if like I'm wrong or if I'm just missing this, because I haven't gone to a ton of events this year, but I'd love to see like the co-creation of out of home creative with like other well-known people in the industry. Like, hey, if they throw me up on a billboard, it's like, hey, listen from someone that's like lived this firsthand. It's like relatable because like, hey, I know that person. But like, I would love to see more of that.
I like that. Let's call out a brand. If does anyone come to mind? We should call them out. Yeah. Tag them in the post.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, it's the people, like if you have employees that are creators, even at some of these companies, like I think of like a Devin Reed when he was at Gong, for example, like they could have leveraged this perfectly. Like so many people probably would have taken that. I think there's a lot of other people at companies that are still like creators that are well known. I think a lot of people have gone off and started to do their own thing for better or worse. But like I think you have the people internally, even if you want to help put them at the center of everything. Cause it goes back to like the people first concept of like, how do you showcase real people versus like an emoji or like just words, like give me that, like that person behind it. And whether I know them or not, at least it's a human face that I feel like is more relatable.
So I saw Harry Dry, and if you don't follow him as a copywriter, it's just brilliant. he talked about a campaign that he ran, and it was using the research from like just being able to pick out stories. And he found an engineer within the company who had just a unique personality, and they featured them in ads. And it was like just the relatability to that person wasn't just slapping a tagline on a billboard. It was like, it was a story related to this human that had a human need. And they talked about how he helped work with, like, it just, the takeaway from that was, I think, very much the human piece to that. And I think you gave a great example. I don't know if you ever read Udi's book about what Gong did to grow, but they did use out of home, and they've done some unique things. But like, that's a really good example of like, the planning is one thing, and we specialize in the planning. So we work on a lot of the science of where to put billboards, which formats to use and such. But the creative part is interesting. And when you talk about, like, you might have an inherent creative like superpower internally that you may not even think about. It doesn't need to be the product attributes on the billboard. Highlight your internal superstars who have an audience. And that, like you said, the relatability there, when someone sees that, they're going to share that online. Like, you're going to get that secondary social proof. That's I think that's a cool idea. Like, maybe we just build a third thing there where it's like, we're going to promote, like, you can work with Nick. We'll put him on your billboards for you. There, I think we just created a new business idea, Nick.
100%. Yeah. And honestly, like, and again, I don't come from a creative background. So like, when it comes to like creative and messaging, like, that's where I look to experts like you all. Like, I could try different stuff, but like, I don't know what's good or not. But like, the one thing that I do think, and again, I'd be so curious on what you guys see, is like, how do you like tying your out of home creative to your brand's behavioral archetype? So in DISC terms, which again, I didn't know much about this, but Mark, who we used to run TAC together, like, he was very much into the messaging and like the brand side of it. So he explained a lot to me. So like, one of the archetypes is influence. So like, if your brand is influence, like, your visuals should look outgoing and conversational. And so there's different, I forget how many there are. I don't know if there's 8 or 10 or whatever the number is, but like, you should tie that out of home creative to the behavioral piece of that, because like, it's your brand identity, and like, and then keep the continuity across the out of home, the social, the on-site experiences. How do you use the same tone, same CTA, same visual cue to an extent? I feel like then it creates a more cohesive experience across everything too.
And that's like the color scheme. It could be the font. It could be the actual tagline. Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you trying to influence someone, or does the product itself help the end consumer influence people? Like, what do you literally mean by that?
I think you're trying to help influence someone, but it's like, you're trying to influence someone as part of like part brand, part, hey, listen, we actually need you to convert, but like, it's the same across everything. So like, for example, if influence is your archetype, for example, and I forget what the definitions of these things are, but there's like, people take this very, very seriously. If you ask like product marketers, like, they can tell you so much about it. But I know influence is one of them. I think I did one test like when I worked for a company a while ago, and I forget, it was like an every man or something like that. I forget what it was. There's another one that's similar, but like, the influence is just the name of like what it is, but there's a big description that goes around what that is. I forget what it is off the top of my head, but like, each archetype basically is kind of like, gives you a deeper meaning of who your brand identity actually is. And so like, influence will tell you some crazy thing, but all I was saying is like, your visuals should maintain that across everything.
Yeah, there's a whole science to all that, especially things like color and how dark red hues mean aggression and power, where, like you look at certain industries and they all skew towards blues, and greens are supposed to like, but none of that can maybe stand out. So like, do you think about like, you use an opposite color that, especially now, as you think about brand exposure might be limited to like 50 by 50 icons in a social media scroll. So if there's a sea of sameness, but all of a sudden there's a one like really identifiable color that stands out, like, that's just subconsciously going to show, like, they might not remember exactly what it was, but the 50 times they see it, it's like, oh yeah, I know that one strong color stands out for this industry, things like that. Like there's a whole philosophy behind that. But that's interesting on the creative side, because we work with brands we work with that run out of home. We have an AI tool that we can help them basically score or grade their creative and give them suggestions based on, especially if they've never done creative for out of home before, because it's not just taking their Facebook ad creative and putting it on a billboard. And what we found, which is really fascinating, is about 60% of the people that we give feedback on, they make changes to their creative based on best practices. So does your logo, is it right-hand read or left-hand read, depending on the side of the road it's on? Is the sign backlit? And that impacts, like, is somebody going to see that at night? And like the colors you use, is it dark? Is the dark background? Are they going to see that in a certain urban setting? There's all these different factors that go into it, but there's a science to that. There's a huge science to that. And that's an interesting, I've never heard anyone think of it that way. That's interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't have either, but like Mark taught me like so much about that over these last like couple of years that I was just like, it actually applies to way more than like people think, or that they should think about. Because like that's when I started to think about like events and like ABM, like how do you tie that to like your brand's kind of like the behavioral piece behind that?
Do you want to run your own account-based marketing program, but you're feeling overwhelmed by complex jargon, expensive tech stacks, and unclear strategies? Scrappy ABM Podcast offers proven strategies and actionable plays that you can use to get started with quick wins. Learn at your own pace, simplify ABM to start seeing real results. Visit Scrappy ABM Podcasts or tune into the Scrappy ABM Show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Nick, switching gears just like a drop, but on the out-of-home note, I'm curious because B2B background, SaaS, MarTech, same with me. Charlie, very similar. You've been working with us for a little while. Probably when we started, you're like, why the hell are these like former HubSpot guys doing out of home? What have you learned so far? Like, what are your thoughts on this whole, on the industry in general? Like where we're at, where we're going, marketing in general? Just kind of curious.
I think there's still a miseducation, or maybe it's not miseducation, but I think there's like a lot of people are just still uninformed of what out of home is. And like, correct. I think there's so much education that still has to happen, because once you see it and once you understand the impact that it can have across a go-to-market motion, then it makes sense. But it's like getting those people to become believers at first, because then once they're believers, like everything is good after that, because like they get it, they understand how to do it. But it's like, how do you get these people to become believers? And I think you're doing a really good job of putting out strong research and things like that kind of back it from a data perspective, because I love those types of things. Like when I was at Alice, like we did this state of gifting report, and we basically looked at 1.5 million gifts that we would send over the course of, or our customers would send over the course of a year. So we knew like, hey, when you send a gift, like Saturdays are the best time at like 10 a.m. So like we knew exactly down to a science, when is the best time? What are the best gifts? Like what's the best type of like messaging to use around it? Like those types of things help educate. And honestly, that was the number one piece of content for years that I was there. Like people loved that. And it was an ungated report. At the time we used Drift, and there was like a conversational basically bot on it, but you could check it out. And it was the number one piece of content. We saw so much new pipeline come in from that, and so much acceleration of pipeline just from that report alone. So like anything that is backed by data to help educate the people that maybe they aren't believers, and maybe there's just, again, misinformed of like what out of home actually is. How do I leverage it? Like, how do I get real examples of people that have done this before? I think those are the things that will help ultimately move the needle. And ultimately, it's like just seeing it in person yourself. Like we were talking before of like, I was just at Dreamforce, and like, I saw so many LED trucks and billboards, and like San Francisco is like the mecca for, I feel like, a lot of these things as well. And like, it's just some people, like you could think of like out of home as like a spray and pray, or you could think of it as like, hey, listen, I'm going to use this as part of a way to elevate like my go-to-market motion.
Yeah. What do you think it is about, I guess maybe just like your network and your counterparts, if you will, smart, performance-oriented marketers, let's just say within the past decade, what do you think it is that's like this unknown thing about out of home? Is it quite literally there's just not a true like voice, like, or source of truth or something in the industry? And again, these were observations that we had entering the industry years ago. Is it just like a really complicated industry to understand? Is it just like the same, what is it? What do you think it actually is, where you ask, honestly, like an average B2B marketer, right? Like what OOH is. Most of them aren't going to know what that stands for.
Right. And I think it's just from like having someone that is thought leader. It's having someone that's out there, like, because when I think of a lot of other like events, for example, I'm sure you might have seen him, Julius Solaris, very well known in the event world. Like he goes to all these events. Like he's seen as like, hey, if you want to know about events, like go follow Julius. Like he has a community around it. Like he built like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of like event marketers that like care about events and like the right way to leverage events. And like I think it's having someone that is, I wouldn't even say like the face of the brand of like One Screen, but it's just like elevating out of home as a category. And again, maybe there is someone out there, but I can tell you, like, I've done this for a while, and like I don't think I've seen like not even a single source of truth, but like a group of people. I haven't really seen anyone like, I think you guys all create awesome content, but like, who's the person that's out there like attending the events, like giving like life in the street examples like that? We should do that. Like that's a fantastic content series. Let's go walk around different cities and film like out of home examples and get like interview people on the street of like what they think. Like stuff like that, I think could make like such an impactful difference.
Charlie, pack your bags. I'm in. Road trip.
Yeah.
I think it is. Look, there's to me, there's like so many underlying reasons why I think that it's newer and nascent to a lot of people, even though it's the oldest form of advertising we quite literally have on planet Earth. But that's what was fascinating to us when we got into the space. And then to your point, Nick, is first of all, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right.
That's number one. Number two is once you see it and how impactful it is, that's like the number two thing that keeps people engaged in doing it, because like shit, like it actually does work. Yeah. And again, we didn't realize that when we first started, but it does work.
And I agree. And I think one of the other things behind this whole thing is like, if you think about the measurement of B2B marketers today, most are stuck in like the digital only mode. So like, think about that. Like your job and what you do is measured through clicks, forms, MQLs. Like if it can't be tracked in HubSpot or Salesforce, most teams don't do it. And so I think part of the issue is out of home doesn't fit cleanly into that system. It's not a channel, it's an experience. And again, like you can look at it however you want, but it gets ignored, even though it's often what breaks through the digital noise. I think that's one of the trickiest things. People are just trying to save their jobs and like get through all the things. And it's like, I need to measure the clicks, and my leadership and the board's going to ask all of these things. So I think that's one thing. I think the other things is there's a huge measurement gap. So like obviously traditional attribution tools can't track a billboard or an LED truck. Now I know One Screen can obviously do so much more than that. But again, if I don't know who you guys are and like everything behind it, like how am I going to know that? And that doesn't mean it's unmeasurable. It just means you just need a different framework. And like maybe it's self-reported attribution fields, maybe it's brand lift metrics. Like what is that direct traffic? What is the search volume, engagement spikes, things like that. Like once marketers see how out of home shows up in signals and not in the UTM links, I think it starts to click. And then I think the third thing that I would say is like, this is how I originally thought of it, was out of home has been labeled as too expensive for B2B, which I can tell you it's not, because we just did something together and it wasn't expensive at all. And I think most marketers assume that out of home means like a Times Square billboard, but there's scalable options. You get the digital billboards, mobile trucks, the geo target. It's all like, there's so many different things that you can do. And I don't have to go spend $200,000 with you if I don't want to, but like the ROI is better when you tie out of home to an event, a campaign, or a content moment. And I think like that is an important piece to know and realize that, hey, it's not too expensive. And if you compare it to some of your other channels, it's actually probably more in line with what you think.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And that partially is the ability to leverage data to identify the undervalued opportunities also. We talk about this with every customer we speak to, D2C, CPG, B2B. You don't have to do New York. You don't have to be in San Francisco. Quite frankly, like I'd rather you not. I just said to a client, you told me you had $500K to spend. I actually don't want you to. I do not want you to. Because you don't have to. sounds crazy, right? For folks listening, like, why the hell would you tell someone to not spend as much money? Because number one, we value ourselves as actual thought partners and best stewards of someone's investment, but you don't actually have to, because you can do a tier 2 market, or you can use data and do a more concentrated area within that market and not have to spend an arm and a leg to blanket the entire city. And that's part of the point. And I think back to the original question, Nick, I think that's, look, personally, I'm trying to create a lot of that content online. Charlie's trying to do it. Look, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Out of home is really at its infancy. Believe it or not, the modern age of out of home, it's at its infancy for a lot of brands. And it's a channel that is going to be critical for brands going forward, given how other channels are performing these days. And it just is what it is. So we're doing our part. Appreciate your perspective, because it's pretty spot on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Like I said, I agree. It's at its infancy, because it's like when people think of out of home, they think of like the airport ads. Like that was always something else that like I thought of, like, oh, you go into an airport for an event, like I'm bombarded by like cybersecurity, like ads from all these companies. But it's like it's changed so much. Even over the last couple of years, it's changed so much. And like you said, like, I think it's like, there's going to be such a need, because all these other channels are starting to get drowned out. Like, paid is getting riskier, like email is tricky, like you gotta find the other pieces of it. And I think you, like you said, I think we're at the early infancy phase of out of home. I think it's only going to go up from here, and I think it's going to have like that hockey stick like growth as well.
Yeah. And all those other channels, and Greg will attest to this, we don't tell anyone like, oh, pull your whole budget and put it in out of home. It's a complement to everything else. And like you said, it's like making a recipe or something, but leaving one part out. It's like, why wouldn't you want the exposure in person that somebody can't turn off or block out? Like it all complements each other. Back to your point, Nick, about being consistent, making sure the message is consistent, the color scheme's consistent. So it's like, they see it 14, 15, 30 times in multiple places. It's like you build that trust over time, and they come back and remember that. So yeah, these points are excellent.
And honestly, it's just like creating content on LinkedIn. Like, great, I see your content every single day. Charlie, I see yours all the time. Like, regardless if I know obviously who you are, but if I didn't know who you are, and like Greg, I see your content every day, I could blank on your name, but I could be like, I see this guy talking about out of home every single day. He shows up. He gives me, like, it's what I did for over 5 years. And it's why I built the following that I did, because I talked about the same thing so often that was like, hey, you're the field marketing guy. Like, obviously I evolved from that, but like you talk about something enough and you're consistent, like you said, Charlie, like, and you provide enough value for free, like people are going to remember that. And whether they're in market today or 2 years from now, they're going to remember you, and they're going to come back around.
Well, Nick, this has been awesome. I suspect we might want to do episode number 2. Charlie, what do you think?
Why don't we just keep rolling? We'll go the rest of the afternoon. But no, you covered a lot of great field marketing tips. I think there's even more. We can definitely dive into a couple other topics. So yeah, your opinions were great. I think someone listening to this has probably copious notes that they could take some really good tangible advice back and say, I could put this in place right now. That was great. So yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll do a version 2. Maybe later in the season, depending on when certain NFL teams play, we'll maybe book it.
Or if it's that late in the season, some might not be playing, Charlie.
The Bills.
Yeah, we're talking about the Bills.
Yes,
how the Patriots beat the Bills.
We'll check back in a few weeks, and we'll see how that goes. But
yeah.
Until then, Nick, thanks for joining us. This was awesome. Really appreciate it. We'll have a version 2 coming soon as well, but this was great. A lot of great insight for the listeners. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks for all the help. And we love it. Thanks.
Thank you.
And Nick, where can folks find you that want to reach out, engage with you, hire you, talk to us?
LinkedIn for sure. I was also joking before, I don't have a website, so don't try to find me on a website anyway. LinkedIn is basically my website. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm a friendly person. Always feel free to reach out. Happy to bounce ideas off of each other as well. So I appreciate you both having me. I mean, I love this type of thing. I could talk about this for hours. So
you're one of the good ones. You're part of the family. And for those folks listening, Nick is one of the best marketers out there. So engage with him, follow him, reach out, do your thing. And obviously reach You can reach out to us at any point. Really appreciate you listening to another episode of Beyond the Billboard podcast. And until the next one, this is Greg Wise and Charlie Riley signing out, and we'll see you guys all soon.
Go buy his book. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Billboard.
If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And if you found value today, share this with a fellow marketer who should be thinking bigger about out-of-home advertising.
If you're looking for a template to build your out-of-home program, visit onescreen.ai to get a free media plan, or connect with us on LinkedIn for all the latest out-of-home insights.
This has been Beyond the Billboard. We'll see you next time.